Hello and welcome to the DrivingMaul show, episode 63. And yes, the NPC is back. Not only is it back, but it's back in name as well as actually in play as well. It's been called the Minor 10 Cup, the Air New Zealand Cup, the ITM Cup. But no, now we have the Bunnings NPC and it is back. And joining me to discuss that, some Bledisloe Cup stuff, Rugby Championship. We'll also talk about the Lions Tour and Farrah Palmer Cup. I've got Boa. How are you doing, sir?
Very well, thanks. NPC, National Provincial Championship. It just rolls right out of your tongue, doesn't it? It sounds like a legitimate grassroots, authentic rugby competition as opposed to some plastic naming rights competition. And boy, am I glad, finally, everyone who's been saying NPC or NPC level provincial rugby for the last, 50, 60, 70 years can now officially say NPC.
Well, yeah, but is the Heartland Championship, is that also NPC? It used to be called NPC, but let's be honest, even if it was Division 2 or Division 3, yes. Anyway, there's still that.
Call it the NPC and the NPC.
And good to have Simon joining us in the live chat. He says, how was the crowd in Tauranga on the weekend? Not very good, to be honest with you. The weather wasn't very good either, in all honesty. What you'll have seen on the TV pictures is a temporary stand with a whole bunch of people sat in on it. And then, but what you should have seen is there was a platform behind that, and they had all marquees set up, and that was where all the corporates were going to be. But the wind the night before ripped it all down. And at the last minute, they had to go into contingency plans and figure out what they were going to do with all their corporates, because all their corporates suddenly didn't have tents or anywhere to watch the game from. So there we go. But look, they scrambled around, got something to happen, and a tough few hours for them there. Good evening, Aaron. I guess, but look, there's been a call in the NPC to get out of the big grounds such as FMG Stadium, Eden Park, the Sky Stadium down in Wellington as well, and to move out to these smaller, people say boutique or club grounds. But when you do that, you do end up with those situations like they had down in Tauranga, where you don't have the corporate facilities, you don't have, and everything has to be so temporary, don't you?
Yeah, that's right. Look, this is something which the grassroots and community rugby community has been, calling out for a while now. And of course, this is one of the challenges. So I guess over the next, couple of seasons, we might see some of these teething issues going out the window. And of course, from an event management and rugby promotional point of view, some of the provincial unions might have to really, they might have these pop-up corporate stands. Now, every industry pretty much has a pop-up version of whatever they do. We see pop-up retails, pop-up boutique food stores. So I think that's definitely going to be in the pipeline. And this is not something I've just made up in my mind. This is what I'm hearing from some of the provincial unions, just to get around this whole thing and get some, sort of community attraction into the corporates. And of course, it might actually end up getting more affordable for your typical GA punters to get into some of these corporate boxes. So, there's going to be teething issues, but I, for one, am very, very glad to see that some of these games are actually moving away from these large concrete jungle-esque stadiums into your Esplanade style, town center ground where, your kids have played footy, where the ANP shows happen. So there's a real communal feel to it, and you have to give the union as well as Bunnings, who are the sponsor, Bunnings NPC, of course. Funny that they're an Australian company, but they've figured this one out real quickly. So I think as we go into the next couple of seasons, we will see a bit of creativity, and I guess more and more crowds will make their way through.
Yeah, and they've been in Tauranga for a while, but before they had tents behind one of the sticks, one end, and clearly the view isn't as good there. Hence, they're trying to basically improve their facilities, move forwards. Unfortunately, as I say, they got caught out by the by the wind there. But as you say, yeah, pop-up stuff is going to happen. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, this is the 100th anniversary for Waikato, and I wouldn't be surprised if this was their final year in FMG Stadium before they move and start to use some of their club grounds within Waikato. I definitely heard that on the rumour mill. Whether it will happen or not, I don't know, but that's definitely rumoured to be happening as well. And joining us as he is always, what do you call it? Always punctual is Stephen Harris. How you doing, sir?
I don't know about punctual, guys, but I'll see if I can get through this. Okay, got a little bit of a whatever it is I'm trying to shake at the moment. Hopefully not that, if you know what I mean. But always a privilege to be on the show when I can, guys. Hi, Bar. How are you this evening?
Very well, thanks. Kia ora and welcome, Mr. S. Harris. It's always good to have you on the show. Yeah, I hope you're feeling a bit better as the show gets on, and hopefully tomorrow you'll be fully recovered.
Hopefully our subjects we've got this evening will keep me fully stimulated.
Yeah. So Aaron says, what about double headers? Well, we do have double headers between the Farah Palmer Cup and the NPC and the Bunnings NPC, but so that does happen. But what I would say is that's a long time to be sat in the stadium for. And I'm not a fan of double headers from a spectator's point of view. From a media point of view, it's great. I get to go to one place and get two sets of interviews, so it makes my life much easier. But from a spectator's point of view, I don't think they're a great idea. And I don't think a super weekend of getting all the NPC games in one place would necessarily be a good idea. But boys, your thoughts? That's a no from Stephen.
I'm so on the idea, because the reality is, sometimes it can get too long as well, and particularly when you're trying to get families through the turnstiles at these local grounds, it can be a little bit awkward. So I'd much rather see your local derbies, going head to head, one good game, everyone comes in. Hopefully there aren't too many TMO interjections, too many ad breaks, etc. You just get it over and done with. Enjoy the footy and then go home. So I'm not a big fan of double headers, but I understand, there are certain commercial realities, and as you rightly said, Paul, man with the microphone for interviews, it's a dream story, isn't it?
Paul, I was going to say, one thing I actually really enjoyed about the weekend was the images that came out of Pukekura Park in Taranaki, with all the spectators up on the back. They all look like sort of bottles on a shelf that they went. I've seen that image somewhere before too, by the way. Bottles all stacked up on the shelf around the ground. It looked really impressive, and I kind of wonder if there's somewhere in there that with this level of rugby, it really is community rugby. And I know, talking to a couple of good friends who went along to the Wellington game on Saturday, $25 a ticket inside a stadium that barely had 1,000 people there. No atmosphere, where they could have taken it to Jerry Collins Stadium down in the lower hut. I just think some of these unions have got to think outside the square. Yeah,
absolutely. Totally agree. I know one of I think Southland, it was free this weekend from memory. I don't know, or was it Hawke's Bay? Anyway, one of the Hawke's Bay were away this weekend, so it can't have been them. Actually, so was Southland. So anyway, somebody had free games this weekend. I can't remember why. $25 is when you only get 1,000 people in. I'm not sure that's a good one. Simon does say that the women's game down in Tasman against Northland, that pitch looked awful. And yes, I agree. I didn't actually watch the game, but I've seen photos from it, and it did look bad. A big, large, basically puddle or small lake in the middle of the pitch. So yeah, not a good look. Well, actually, not good for the game for the players. It's not going to get you good rugby. I mean, that's one of the good things about New Zealand pitches on the whole, is that you don't get those mud fests. Is that we do have good quality pitches across our main places. And Stephen, remember we up at Whangarei, we had a look at that one. It was on the pitch up there. It's not Seminoff Stadium anymore, is it? We've got a new sponsor. But anyway, up in Northland, that pitch was fantastic, and that's what you need. So players can be if you want to have attractive running rugby, you've got to be able to have sure footing.
Listen, great concept by the Motueka Rugby Football Club to stage that game, but at the same token, you know, you're trying to put on a spectacle, you know, for the people that actually turned up. They got a reasonable crowd that turned up, but you know, I didn't think it would have taken too much to look at the weather forecast a couple of days in hand and have some sort of contingency plan, because that ground was absolutely disgusting. I know there's been a lot of comment about it on the social network, namely by me. So, but I put it out there and got a lot of response from a lot of people, including the Dave Ward, who's the ground announcer down in Tasman, and he just said it was an embarrassment.
Yep.
Yeah, I did see some images of this game, and rightly so. I mean, it's great that you're taking these games to some of the smaller venues, but as you rightly said, Stephen, all it takes is 48 hours ahead. Look up Google weather, and if it's down for a torrential downpour, I mean, look, it you know what that ground resembled and reminded me of a really good day on a winter's racing day at Trentham. It was an irrigated surface. It was boggy, and good God, it was a mess. So I feel for those girls, and a little bit of common sense should have really prevailed.
Listen, I actually felt a little bit of danger for some of those girls where one particular girl got taken pretty much in the middle of the puddle, and she was under a whole lot of bodies, and I thought to myself, listen, this is just crazy. It's unacceptable.
Well, yes, thankfully she didn't drown. Let's I guess running through the Farah Palmer Cup scores from the weekend. First up, Manawatu Cyclones against Hawke's Bay Tuis. Manawatu coming out 67-12 on top there. Manawatu looking impressive this year in the championship, and you've got to say they are on track. Is they are in the championship, aren't they? Yeah, they're 3 from 3 so far, top of that table, looking like they'll definitely be challenged. They'll definitely be part of the finals. Side of things.
Paul, I was going to say just on the Cyclones. Obviously, I saw them play the other week when they played the Kauri up in Whangarei, and they put on a devastating first half where they basically blew the Kauri off the paddock, pardon the pun, guys. But that's practically what they did. And what I have noticed, they're very, very fit, athletic team that play a specific type of game plan. And listen, their first 5 carries, Dellinger is she's a black fern in the making. She's got a kicking game. Something I've just started to see to evolve a little bit in the women's game is actually the kicking part of the game. In recent seasons, we've seen a lot of these teams actually, basically tapping it and moving it around. But listen, it's all very well doing that if you're scoring points, but if you're basically just tapping it and losing it in contact to good teams, you're going to get punished. And I know, thinking back to the Cyclones, I was really impressed how Dellinger basically saw that she had a big breeze behind her and used that wind really, really effectively. No, listen, very athletic team, and boy, I think they're a team on the rise, only a young team.
Yep, absolutely. I think I've been overpowered a couple of times in recent seasons, but look like they've got over that. I'm not seeing many of these ones, but Wellington Pride, having gone down to Canterbury by just 1 point last weekend, beat Counties Manukau 26-25. So Wellington looking very impressive this year as well. Counties, one of the powerhouses in women's rugby. Good
game this, Paul. I saw a bit of this game. Counties Manukau pretty much had this game wrapped up. There was about 30 seconds to go, and I thought the right idea inside their 22 was really to basically tap it, just hold on to the ball, run the clock down, but instead they kicked it to touch. Unfortunately, lost the line out, and credit to the Wellington Pride, they actually showed enough composure to basically find some mismatches out wide, and then hence the winning try. A little bit guttering for the Counties Manukau Steel, but man alive, you know, if ever there was an important line out, it was the very last line out of the game. They got it wrong, and they paid the ultimate price.
Yep. We then had Otago being downed by Waikato 22-29. That's Otago's fourth loss of the season, and they are going to be them and Bay of Plenty are looking like the two that are going to be scrapping out to see who finishes bottom of that one there in the Premiership. North Harbour put up a good result against Taranaki, 24-10. Taranaki getting their first ever win last year was against North Harbour, and the Taranaki coming off the back of beating Tasman. So, yes, good revenge there for North Harbour against Taranaki. Taranaki, I say, a new program that is on the improve.
Yeah, great.
Paul,
I was going to say, great performance from the Harbour fullback, Hutana. She played a part in 2 or 3 of the tries that was scored by the Hibiscus, and she looks like she's just got game. And it's fantastic to see. If you think back a year ago, Harbour was struggling this time last year, Paul. So good performance from them for the Taranaki Fjord. I think just probably a case of for them missed opportunities, because they more than matched Harbour up front, but it was just that ability of Harbour to nail the chances when it really mattered.
Yep. Then we had Tasman losing 0-25 against Northland. Tasman really struggling this season. I've had a chat with their CEO last year, and he was saying how that they know that their women's program is a very young program and will probably remain that way. A lot of the girls head down to Canterbury for university or further afield, and so keeping players is a real difficulty for them. They're aware of that, and it's again a program that's going to need to grow down there.
Paul, 2 players had a massive influence on that performance, and once again we talk about the kicking game, and once again Victoria Sabritsky Nafatali at first 5 just basically knew which areas of the game or ground to play the game. She used the wind to get good effect, especially from turnover ball. But I've got to say, if there's a female rugby player who could play in any position from 1 to 15 in the world, and you'd probably say in that respect she's probably as good as any. She's probably the only person in world rugby that can do that is Crystal Murray. I think she could start at prop or go to fullback and play equally well. Her skill level is absolutely off the scale, and of course when you get her running in those wider channels, 1 or 2 channels, she's just so devastating. And one particular try that she nailed stands out for mine, where she was basically it was a case of give me the ball 25 meters out, and she must have went through about 6 or 7 of the Marco girls. It was beg your pardon, the Tasman ladies in that game, and it was just unfortunately for Tasman. Tasman, to me, probably looked the more fitter team, but the conditions just didn't help them. They couldn't get anything together, and they just kept spilling a lot of ball. And unfortunately, those conditions for that, and I mean this with the greatest respect, they're probably the bigger Northland pack. I think those conditions were pretty much homemade, so I think they enjoyed, regardless of what the track looked like, I think they probably enjoyed their day down in the sludge, and I think they got. I think they might have picked up a bonus point as well, Paul.
27, yeah, they will have done. They'll picked up, for the four tries, or at least three more than Tasman. And then finally, Canterbury downing Auckland up in Auckland, 32-7. Canterbury really stamping their authority on this competition, and I think you'll be, clearly odds-on favourites already to take out the title, even though we're only 4 rounds into this one. It's very difficult to look past them, having already beaten Counties and Wellington, and now Canterbury also beating Auckland. It's impressive on there.
Can you get that, Bar? I think that's for you, mate.
Don't worry, I've muted him now, so he can carry on ringing. He can take his phone call.
I was going to say, Paul, big part of that Canterbury win once again. Kendra Coxedge, she's just an amazing player, and even though Canterbury have lost a couple of players, obviously, you know, the winger that came up from Auckland, which there were 2 sisters. One of the wingers came up to Auckland, so they've lost a couple of players. But boy, they just have not missed a beat, this Canterbury team.
Yep, looking very powerful, and looks like I'll take it out. Marcus makes a good point that actually that you've got to be careful when taking things to taking these games to club grounds is just about the facilities and having the correct changing facilities for women and men as well. So, yeah, you're quite right. Changing facilities, etc., need to be needs to be done. On that note, I've got interviews lined up with the CEO of Counties Manukau and the CEO of Northland to discuss with them how they would spend any money, any extra money that comes from investment into New Zealand rugby on growing the grassroots in their provinces. So look out, those. The first of those interviews is going to happen next Tuesday. So look out for those interviews coming up, talking about how they would grow grassroots rugby. Because I've got a funny feeling that facilities would be one of the topics that they'll be talking about.
It almost certainly will be, and that's a very good point. Particularly in the women's game, one of the barriers, which and this is right around New Zealand, is changing facilities for women's players. And if you recall, a couple of weeks back, Eden Park was going to get a big facelift, particularly in the facilities for changing showers, etc. So I think that will kind of set off a domino effect, and as a policy, NZR will actually be talking to all the provincial unions, and then the unions talking to their individual club members on how this thing can be rolled out. So I'm expecting over the next, it's not gonna sort itself out overnight, but I would suspect over the next 3 to 4 years we will see some considerable changes, and this will actually be quite a strong selling point in actually attracting more females into the game, and particularly younger participants. So hopefully we will see some positive change. And Paul, I'm looking forward to those interviews.
Yeah, something that was mentioned during last year about with the women's cricket World Cup coming here, about upgrading facilities for those games. I think that was at talking about in Wellington and Christchurch, maybe not Wellington. I think they were upgrading them at the gone blank as to the test ground in Wellington that they play at. That's part of
the Basin Reserve, yeah.
Basin Reserve, that's right. Yep. So yeah, but look, it's not just a problem for rugby; it's a problem across multiple sports. I think you say over the next, you're saying 2 to 3 years. I'd say 5 to 10 years. There's a lot of places to upgrade. It will take a lot of cash and a lot of effort. So I think we will see improvements, which is good to see. Moving on,
it'll probably be 10 years, because given that local councils are involved, you're probably on the money there, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on then to the Bunnings NPC, the Bunnings Warehouse NPC, and Boa making the point there that it's the Australian company that's brought us back to our national provincial competition, getting the proper name back. And I did do it for your ears only piece, looking at New Zealand Rugby's choices of sponsors. And one of the things I said was I think Bunnings sponsorship of the NPC is great for Bunnings. I'm not sure it's a great choice for New Zealand Rugby though, personally. If you want to go have a listen or a watch of that, again, that's for supporters only over at nzsportradio.com. So looking at those, I guess the NPC fixtures, look, Manawatu 39, Counties Manukau 21. Wow, that one, I'll be honest, surprised me. I was very impressed by Manawatu, a team that has struggled over the last 2 or 3 years, and part of. But they've done a bit of recruitment, losing Jamie Booth, their captain, who has been inspiration for them the last 2 years. I thought it was going to be a big loss for them, and I was a bit worried for them coming into this competition. But Brett Cameron looks like he's happy there, and a very good performance by Manawatu. Stephen, I know you watched it. I don't know if Boa, you saw that one as well.
Yeah, look, I have to say I was very, very surprised that Counties got such a bad caning, because I've been with Counties with the NPC side over the last few weeks, doing some coach developer work with their senior coaching staff, and I have to say the preparation has been superb. So I was very surprised, but you have to give credit where credit due. I did catch the highlights, and boy, oh boy, Manava too, whenever they executed, whatever they touched, it just turned into goals. So, some days, you get those days, everything you do just goes right. The key challenge now is, can Manava 2 maintain this consistency? If they do, they're going to be a serious challenge.
I think the good thing about Manawatu too, they recruited really well, up to a dozen players over the off season. And listen, they've got a little bit of quality in key positions as well. Look, they brought Ray Nuya in, who he's had a couple of seasons with Tasman. He's also been with North Harbour. They brought in Seamus Hurley Langton, who was probably close to the number 7, who was close to the man of the match. He's basically been drafted out of Wellington Club Rugby, one of the better performers in Jubilee Cup Rugby, and that's formed a really good loose forward trio with Braden Yosse, who's basically had time in the Hurricanes, and also the very, very promising TK Howden, who I think played New Zealand 20s last year. So that loose forward trio had a big part in terms of the way of this game. But I think a guy who may have actually found his feet at last and broken the shackles of being part of both Canterbury and the Crusaders is Brett Cameron, because once again, he was superb. He pretty much ran the cutter for them. And listen, they've got a little bit of X factor out wide with Timo Whaianuku, who's transferred from Tasman, and also the young lad Wild at the back, who scored a good try. Listen, really, really impressive. They look pretty much organised. Unfortunately for Counties, they kind of look like they met in the car park board, despite having some good early season preparation. Listen, there were some good parts, but in a lot of cases, they, to me, they didn't get their midfield involved, which is their strength in Talia and Tikaro Tuma. Those two with a bit of space are pretty much capable of anything. But they did unearth a kid with a heck of a boot, the left winger Halliday, who nonchalantly knocked over a penalty from halfway, and I think he might have knocked over one a little bit early. But listen, the story of this game was pretty much the Turbos loose forwards, just a little bit too good. I do ask the question, listen, Nili Latu, he must be close to 40, and why you'd have Hosking Satutu on the bench. You need to start this championship strong, and okay, there might be limited amount of time, but I think you need to get your All Black number 8 out there and make a statement.
Yeah, and I mean, look, in my opinion, just looking at Hoskins' last outing in the All Blacks, he looked short of a gallop, and he needs all the form he can get. So the best way to get some run-on form is to actually play some NPC footy, get some confidence, get some numbers on that GPS, get some carries. I think there's a few tactical issues there, and I have to say, I am firmly with you, Stephen Harris, on that. If you have an All Black, don't keep him on the bench. Get him started. Get him stuck into it. If you have a thoroughbred horses, you got to run them. Keeping them on cold storage, to me, just makes no sense. So that's something I will certainly be asking. Why? Why did not Mr. Satutu start? So it'll be interesting to see what the answer is going to be.
And Scott likes my Southland jersey. So, yep, got this one on. Obviously, you can see that there's the Harbour one there. There's a Taranaki one. Oops, about there-ish. And I've got a Northland one down the floor here and a few others. So, yeah, I'm starting to get some.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Listen, while Paul's sorting his jersey, yeah, listen, there was a couple of good individual performances from Counties Manukau, and I was really impressed with Roygard, the halfback, who's keeping Jonathan Tamatoni out of the team. And I thought in a beaten team, he looked really, really sharp. So good performance from him. Sekopu Kefu, good to see him return to the scene of the crime where he originally started his career at Counties Manukau. We'll get to that in a moment. Scotty, your fans down in Dunedin, I thought they were awesome, but we haven't got there yet, mate. You just got to wait. Back to you.
Yeah, I'm trying to speed you on, because if we speak this long over every single NPC game, we'll be here until midnight. So after that, look, we had that Taranaki game against Hawke's Bay, 33-19. In that, as you say, Papakura Park, looked fantastic location. I think it's
sorry. What was that park again?
Papakura.
no, Pukekura Park. But that's okay.
Pukekura. Oh, and I used to live in New Plymouth as well.
No.
Within walking distance of that park, actually. Look, fantastic venue, sold out as well. So brilliant, well done by Taranaki. And again, good thinking outside the box, because obviously their stadium there is earthquake destroyed and is being rebuilt. So good to see that. For Hawke's Bay, this is a serious concern. Losing to a championship side in your opening game of the week, what was supposed to be promoted, and red flags have got to be being raised already about Hawke's Bay and their chance of surviving the Premiership.
I'll tell you what. When they've got the shield up for stake, I think there'll be a different side at home. They'll look back at this game and think to themselves they missed a heck of a lot of opportunities. They'll also look at their discipline. I think Pedofeta might have kicked about 3 penalties in that first 20 odd minutes or so. So, discipline let them down, and they just weren't quite accurate enough on the day. And it was a case of Taranaki showing some real heart. I thought at 19-12, when they brought it back to 19-12 at halftime, I thought it was Hawke's Bay's game to lose. But no, listen, they'll be better for the hit out. Think back to last year, Paul. They lost to set that very jersey you're wearing. They lost to Southland in their very first game in 2020, and we know how their season played out.
Well, true. But one of the things we've seen with some sides is that they end up concentrating too much, or not, even if it's not on purpose, but concentrating too much and putting too much effort into the Ranfurly Shield defences, that they end up faltering on their away games. So that might be something that Hawke's Bay have got to be guard if they're wanting to survive in the Premiership, because I say losing your first cross one is a difficult start for them. Simon says, with the Hawke's Bay team, you haven't got anything to worry about, because they are they're plenty lost their first games last year and made it to something. So that's true. Yep.
That's true.
Up in was followed by, actually at the same time, I think, was Wellington beating Northland 54-7. Ouch.
Boy, I don't know if there's much to say about that. Just basically too good, too strong, too fast. Simple as that. Basically, Wellington looked like a side that was loaded with Super Rugby talent, and Northland without a couple of their key members, including Sam Knock. Tom Robinson, massive loss. He could be out for the whole season with that HIA, depending. They're going to check it after week 6, and the good thing is there are no symptoms. And then to further compound their misery, they've lost Rennie Ranger for the season. We won't talk about how he received that injury. We could be here all night, but he had an operation, put a plate in the arm, clean break. He's out for the season. On saying that, I know at Northern headquarters they're very disappointed with that performance. On saying that, very good performance from Wellington. Hugely impressed with Ruben Love. God, what a talent! At times, it looked like men against boys, but he's only a boy himself, so it was boys against boys.
Yeah, well, one thing I would say is this is a game actually which large chunks of the Wellington Lions. They were just too fast in the breakdown, and they got lightning quick ball. And as soon as those first ball carriers, they were just breaking the gain line as well. And something I have to say, which is starting to be a very common denominator where sides who do quite badly, Northland, the Tanifa, they seem to play the game a lot higher. And by higher, I mean the point of entry into contact, both carrying the ball and in defense. And you saw what happened to Mr. Ranger with his forearm. Breaking his forearm on someone's forehead many years ago in the NRL, the swinging arm. So all in all, it was actually very, very poor abject technique in all facets of the game, particularly the ferocity in how they entered into rucks. They just got beat up front quite badly. And actually, I have to say, they were quite fortunate that the hiding was only a 50-point hiding. It could have been far, far worse.
Totally.
So, I'm sorry, Bo, your microphone is fading in and out. So I'm not quite sure what happened there. But sometimes it sounded great. Other times it sounded very distant. So just a quick check on the what microphone you're using, if you can. So as you say, moving swiftly on from that one, because of onto Otago versus Southland. Look, as Scott said, Scotty said in the live chat, great to see the Southland fans head up the road up to Otago, and a cracking game as well. A lot of us, I think, had Otago down as the pre-season favourites to get promoted and to be probably the strongest and most dominant side in the championship. But boy, oh boy, Southland brought it to them and very nearly came away with all the points.
Yeah, got to go along with that. And once again, Del McLeod started the season with a whole lot of injuries. I mean to say, he was scouring the country looking for props, and he picked up a prop that Northern didn't want, and Chris Apua, and Chris did a great job on the right hand side of the scrum, that tight head side for Southland. But boy, some of the guys that he brought in really stood up. I thought Melo Harris, who's transferred down from Taranaki, did a great job at halfback, and of course the man, the legend himself, Marty Banks. Boy, what he brings to a side is basically game management, and they are a gutsy side. This Southland side, they won't be the easy beats. They scrummage well. They do most of their set piece stuff reasonably well. They probably just really didn't get enough go forward to really bend the advantage line to get in behind Otago. A lot of people would say Southland were a little bit unlucky, but I always thought that Otago, despite those early exits and early injuries that they had in the first 10 minutes, obviously Jonah Nareki out for the whole season, so hell of a loss for Otago. But I thought where the real difference was, once again, just in the loose forwards with the boy Dylan Nell, the number 8, always getting over the advantage line, and James Lynch's very, very good. And of course, when you've got the likes of Josh Ioane and that experience with Faddis coming back into the side, boy, that's a lot of X factor. Really impressed with Sam Gilbert, who's transferred from Christchurch down to Otago. So I think at the end of the day, they deserved that win. But the highlight for me is how the Southland team, how much character, guts, and you can see they're well coached by Dale McLeod, and of course their supporters up in the stand. Man, they're next level.
Yep, absolutely. And look, one of the great things about the NPC this year is you've got players like you've got Marty Banks, Matt Fadders. We're going to get onto it. Canterbury didn't play Debrasini or Naholo. You mentioned, I've gone blank now as to the old boy in the opening game as well. So there's a whole bunch of players who have come back, probably COVID related, but it's great to see these players back and running around in the NPC.
Big shout out there. A player mentioned there, Stephen, was Sato Milo Harris. I mean, tremendous player. He's had a great club season with G-Tech. He's transferred that form to getting his call up with Taranaki, and someone who really works hard. And shout out to his old man as well, Richard Harris, former director of coaching at Auckland Rugby, now with Counties with the NPC side. Great character, and I think it's really nice to see people who are willing to do the hard yards, work. It's what I call Mickey Mouse ears from a coaching point of view. You have big ears, you take it all in, you listen, you keep your mouth shut, you do your work, and it's a wonderful thing.
And happy birthday to Richie Harris. It's your birthday today, so I hope you had a great day.
Any relation, Steve?
Oh, I'm pretty sure if you know.
No, okay. Moving on to Sunday then, Bay of Plenty versus Tasman. I was at this game, and it was interesting to see Roger Randall was there from the Chiefs. So good to see the Super Rugby coaching staff getting out and looking at the players within their area as well. Bay of Plenty, just their set piece just really fell apart in this game. The lineouts really struggled. Tasman, really, it was errors that were letting them down to not take an early lead. They did get in front eventually through a kicking over a scrum penalty, and as it always is in Tauranga, the wind played a big part in this one. and two line out maul tries soon after half time, and that really sealed it for Tasman. But whilst I'll say that they've got some really attacking players, and we saw some real nice rugby being played from them, even though their tries came from those line out mauls. But and I mean Talia, he had some real line busting in that towards the end of the first half, especially.
Yeah, and boy, I don't know, they must have a factory of wingers down there, or a direct line to Fiji, because once again they unleashed the beast, Timosi Tavatava Nawai, who I'd heard a little bit about. He was actually selected in the Hurricanes, but the Highlanders, beg your pardon, last year, but we never saw a lot of him. And boy, he's just an absolute beast, and he's going to terrorise some defences in this competition in 2021. But you know, one of the unsung heroes of that team, Paul, is Hugh Renton, the number 8. Boy, he gets through a lot of work, and he's a totally underrated player. We saw, and he was with the Highlanders this year, and you know, Hugh's a very special story, having lost his dad a few years ago when he was down in the Hawke's Bay, and I really enjoy watching him. But I also thought the other guy that basically took this game by the scruff, I was going to say something else, by the scruff of the neck, was Mitch Hunt as well. Just knew what to do, and once again, that was on the back of Tasman getting their set piece right. And boy, have a look at their bench, the guys. When you can bring the likes of Quinton Strange, Anton Signa, Atu Moli off the bench, and also Fatuli Paia and Levi Amua. Hello. Boy, they are the team to beat again this year.
Well, since you named
no question.
Let's hear from Mitch Hunt. Oh, damn, wrong type of wrong video file. Never mind. I'll next week I'll have it all set up so we can do it. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah,
go on,
I was just about to say, I think, no question, Mitch Hunt, conductor of the orchestra, and he has this unique skill. It's what we call catching the ball with your fingertips. He's so confident with it that just allows him faster, good, accurate ball to his outsides. And it's a fraction of a second faster service at first receiver, getting those fast outside backs. And every single time the ball goes out wide, you see a line break. So those are little subtle differences, class players having played Super Rugby at a higher level, playing at provincial level. And, consistent work where he injects himself into the game at the right moment, and really good decision making. So absolutely right, Stephen, absolutely right, Paul. Tasman Mako, the one to beat this year, and I'll be very, very, very surprised if they don't go back to back again.
Just on shame you can't find that video, Paul, because one thing about Mitchell Hunt that he does really, really well, he deals with rush defence really well. If he sees the rush going on, he's got the footwork to actually reset it again with his forwards, or basically look around. Looks like he's got time on the ball, which we all know is the sign of a good footballer. To my way of thinking, I actually thought the Steamers had a chance of taking that game, Paul. You look through their roster, they've put one heck of a roster together, but like you say, if you can't get your set piece together, I don't care who you are in this game, you're gonna get punished, and that's pretty much happens. So the odd good individual performance, but once again, I thought Paul, just at times their discipline let them down as well when they got themselves into attacking position, just turning the ball over at the wrong time.
Yeah, and obviously they've got a new coach this year with Clayton McMillan moving on to the Chiefs. Daryl Gibson, the ex Waratahs head coach, is now the head coach in Bay of Plenty. So obviously, new coaching setup as well as they had 11 debutants in a match day 23. So there's a lot of growth in this growth potential in this Bay of Plenty team.
And great one-on-one battle between Tyrell Lomax and Aidan Ross as well. And we all know who came out on top.
Yep. As Bo says, that was the Tasman are going to be thereabouts. I mean, Bay of Plenty were quarter-finalists last year, and as I say, lots of growth, lots of upside in this squad. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them there again. The other semi-final that we might have seen was Auckland versus Canterbury. I think basically those 4 teams could be the 4 teams in the finals, is with Wellington perhaps being the one side that might upset that. But Auckland beating Canterbury 35-24. I've not seen this one or seen anything about it, but clearly a very good result for Auckland against a strong Canterbury side, but a Canterbury side that still had a lot of players to come in. So again, another squad, another team that I expected it to improve during the season. And Stephen, it only works if you unmute yourself.
True. Mate, just before we touch on that game, of course, Waikato beat North Harbour as well.
I was going to come back to that one.
By 28-15. Were you going to go forward?
I was going to deal with the 2 Premiership ones together, you see, because I had a whole storyline of those 4 being the full finalists.
Okay.
So yeah, but
we'll go back to that Auckland Canterbury game. Yeah, good first half from Auckland, and boy, I've got to say, it's probably one of the better performances I've ever seen from Jonathan Ruru, and I've got to say, even Harry Plummer. And listen, we didn't see much use of the new rule, the 50-20, but these guys just basically used that wind absolutely brilliantly. And listen, I think the Auckland pack especially more than matched that Canterbury pack. And one player who impressed me no end was Ikuasi, the number 8, the 19-year-old New Zealand 20s. Boy, this kid just looks a talent, just looks an absolute beast. So that first half, very, very good. But I think we all knew that Canterbury weren't going to lie down.
Yep, no, absolutely.
I was very surprised for a halftime score. I nearly fell off my chair. But again, guys, it just shows that if Auckland show up and they do the thing, and if they're quite aggressive up front, they can really put even the best sides under pressure. But having said that, I think Canterbury were missing a number of their regulars as well.
Yeah.
So I think we can't read too much into this result, but at the same time, let's not devalue what Auckland did. And I have to say, yeah, you're right. Jonathan Ruru and Harry Plummer, boy, player of the day, that last try, just ran through everyone. Didn't bother about kicking, chipping, which is what he pretty much does. And I have to say, I'm not the biggest fan of Harry Plummer, but he certainly won me over. That was a very, very daring raid right through the Cantabrians. And I have to say, I was a bit disappointed with the Canterbury defense because they were waiting on the man. And again, they were engaging very high. As you know, I have this pet hate where players go high and handsome and, get into all sorts of things. And that was, for me, the best illustration as to why, if you're going to make a tackle, go nice and low. I think Harry Plummer beat 4 would-be tacklers, and he put 2 clear fins directly on the sternum area and then goes over to score the try. So well done to Harry Plummer. And Auckland, long may it continue, but at the same time, I think Auckland did Canterbury a bit of favour, and they would have really woken up the sleeping giant.
Absolutely. We all know at the pointy end of the season, they'll have some, what they will have on is basically depth, because they also had some real young kids. And I thought one of the differences too was what Auckland added off the bench as well. And there was just enough quality on the bench. And then, their scrum, they basically, they added the young boy Ahio, who's in the New Zealand 20s. And you've got Jordan Lay and Vakina, who's had a bit of time with the Blues. It's some big, there's some big bodies to bring on in the second half. But on saying that, it's Canterbury just unleashing some young sides. I must admit, it must have been a mixed day for the Gibson family, whether to choose the Gibson that was playing on the side of the scrum for Auckland, or the Gibson that was on the side of the scrum for Canterbury. Of course, those two brothers there. But we all know that this Canterbury team, come the pointy end, will have a completely different look about it. But you know what? Like you said, Boy, you take the wins. Auckland teams from previous years would have probably lost this game.
Yep, and then the final game, which was before this, but was North Harbour 15, Waikato 25. Again, I missed this one. I was at Bay of Plenty, Waikato beating North Harbour. I think that was pretty much as expected. Waikato, the Premiership team, North Harbour, the Championship side that has struggled to retain players recently. Clearly, they're running on a smaller budget than some of the other teams in this competition, unsurprising to see Waikato get the win there in that one. Anything in particular from this game, guys?
The thing that disappointed me this most, and I think, listen, one of the feature of the Warehouse Bunnings NPC round one for me has been actually the performances of a lot of the first fives. We've seen some really good performances from a lot of the first fives in this competition. You know, you could pretty much start it on Friday night with Brett Cameron, and it actually went through again. You know, on Saturday we saw good performances from Ruben Love, Marty Banks, Josh Ioane, and you know, once again Saturday afternoon, Harry Plummer. We spoke just before about Mitch Hunt, but once again we saw very, very good second half performance, especially from Fletcher Smith v Bryn Gatlin. The first 20 minutes it was all Bryn Gatlin with the kicking game. Unfortunately, I thought for Harbour, you know, when you've got the likes of Sean Stevenson, Thomas Aoki, and Cade Banks, who's a real talent from the Takapuna club, you got some Ferraris parked out on the wing. You know, why aren't you getting the ball to them as opposed to kicking it away? And you know, to me, the key moment was a misdirected kick from Gatlin that was picked up by Matty Lansdowne, who basically found space right up the middle of the paddock. You could have driven about 3 buses through the middle. That's how big the gap was. And he found Dawai, who looks an absolute talent, another Fijian winger, who basically, I think he made his debut for Waikato back in 2018, had a couple of injuries, but he just looked lethal, picked up a brace. But I also thought, once again, the interjection of Quinta Pye, Paul Baines, I got to send out an apology to you, brother. I know you've got big reps on Quinta Pye. I'm not so sure, but boy, this kid has got some talent. He's so strong. He's so strong in contact. He carries strongly. He's got a little bit of X factor as well. He's going to play a lot of games for the All Blacks. He was very good value, but I also thought that Waikato pack stood up as well. They disrupted a lot of Harbour's ball, and the boy McConnell, who's been out with injury for a couple of seasons, and he was highly rated. But boy, he disrupted a lot of Harbour's ball as well as taking his own ball. So a good performance all up from Waikato.
Yep. This weekend I will be at Counties Manukau for their game on Friday night up against North Harbour. I will probably be late to the Farah Cup game. That's Counties up against Auckland, which should be a cracker of a game. That's a 4:35 kickoff on Friday. If you can get down to Navigation Home Stadium. Then on Sunday, I'll be at the doubleheader between Waikato and Wellington for both the Farah Cup and also the NPC game. So keep an eye out for the post-match interviews from those on our Facebook page and Twitter. Depending on Stephen might be at Northern versus Taranaki. We'll see how he goes. And if he gets rid of that cough, to head up there for that one.
I was going to say, Paul, that Farah Cup is going to be the Auckland Women's Club Championship game all over again. Of course, Manura beating Ponsonby 14-10 this year, and both of those teams were basically loaded with Counties Manukau players and Storm players. So I reckon this is kind of round 2, but at the provincial level.
That's with a few friends brought in. So those say that one. I'll hopefully I might make the second half of that game, but I'm not sure if I'll be there in time for that one. We're running out of time. We'll quickly go through and talk about. Actually, first off, one of the things that we got during this weekend was some commentary going, "Oh, 50-22, what's that? You'll have to enlighten me." I'm like, Willie Loose, hello, do your preparation, please. You don't even know what the laws are of the game that they're playing. Jeez. So, to get everyone up to speed, because clearly not everyone has spotted that there's 5 new laws that came in on the 1st of October. But first off, there is 50-22 law where if you kick it from your own half and it bounces in the opposition 22 and goes out, you get the line out. The idea of this one being about forcing the teams to drop one or two of the wingers back to create more space up front, What we're seeing currently is one winger dropping back and the fullback, and they're both playing wide left and right, which is leaving massive gaps down the middle of the field. So at some point, I think teams are going to spot this and put ball onto the grass and watch it bounce a few times. So not working necessarily quite as expected yet, but I think over time that'll work on that one. Now it's all been called the 50-22, but I thought it was a 22-50 as well. But I can't find the official World Rugby release. But
50-22. 50-22.
So 22. It's not 22-50 as well, because it was both in the for the Super Rugby AU.
The thing is, with WR, they've got to take a cue from the New Zealand government with COVID-19 campaign, and they got to do something like that. Maybe on social media say, "Hey fans, guess what? We've got some new rules." And again, this highlights the gap. I've had some diehard rugby fans who've been watching rugby since they're probably born with a rugby ball. They didn't know what this rule was, and I had to do a little bit of education. They said, "How do you know?" I said, "Oh, I happened to get an email from World Rugby because I'm kind of connected to World Rugby." So this clearly shows where the miscommunication is, which is very unfortunate.
The goal line dropout, which I think pretty much most of us have seen and got used to during Super Rugby. I think a lot of us not a great fan of that one. I'm not too bad, but I know that not people that think that you're not getting you're not giving the attacking side their advantage they should have by having a 5-meter scrum on that one. The pre-bound pods of players. Now, I thought this was illegal because it used to be called a flying wedge, and it got made illegal. But we've seen it coming into the game a lot more recently. So World Rugby has said you're allowed to have one player pre-bound onto a player, which I don't agree with. I think each player should be on their own until they make contact. But hey, they have now allowed one player to be pre-bound prior to receiving the ball, even so you don't even have to wait to pick up the ball. So there we go. The lower limb clear out. So this is players who are targeting or dropping their weight onto lower legs of a jackler. So we'll see if that one has. And the one pre-bound player has the same responsibility as a first arriving player. So he must stay on his feet and enter through the gate and all of that kind of stuff. Quite how he's supposed to do that when he's getting tackled and taken straight down with the ball carrier, I don't know. But see that one as a law that doesn't get blown much, or gets blown inconsistently, because hey, let's just give the refs even more things to try and look at and try and catch, because clearly they're catching everything already, and they're getting bored during games.
Something that I picked up, and I think sometimes the referees have got to be aware of what's going on. There was a perfect example. Now this came from the All Black test on Saturday night, where Valentino was basically carrying into contact, and he got tackled short of a player that was lying on the ground, but he made an extra roll to basically go over the player to lock the player in behind him, and that All Black player was actually penalised for lying in the ruck. But if you actually watched what Valentino did, he actually got taken down, but decided to make one more movement over the top of the player, which basically made sure that he trapped the ball. Listen, to me, that's milking it. I just think sometimes the referees are just a little bit.
That is illegal. That is completely and utterly illegal. There's only one dynamic movement allowed on the floor. That's usually to place the ball backwards. So it's actually illegal. You can't do that. A commando roll, Rambo roll, whatever you call. It is ridiculous, and this further highlights the confusion, disjoint, and all it does is put referees in an awkward situation, and it just highlights the incompetence. So maybe we'll see after all these 5 rules, there's a big mishmash. Rassi Erasmus will come with a 2-hour-long video and highlight some of these shortcomings.
Well, yeah, but he'll only highlight things from that go against his team, nothing that goes for his team, because hey, that would be. Yeah, you're like, oh, please, somebody else make a video. Oh, bugger off! You're being one-eyed, and yes, the refereeing.
I would love to do that, but I'll probably get ostracized by World Rugby. That's my gig with World Rugby done and dusted.
It's quite interesting. I was I was listening to Will Carling this morning, who was on the new sports radio show. I'm not too sure who they are. You've already done some work for them at the moment, Paul, so you'd know who they are. And it was quite interesting listening to Will Carling this morning, and we're just quickly running out of time. But he sort of questioned Gatland's tactics of maybe getting into an arm wrestle when, you know, the Lions showed that they were really good at basically moving teams around, and why they just, you know, basically I think what he was saying, they should have probably just been a little bit more adventurous.
Yep. There's been a lot of criticism of Gatland's tactics, but he did come close, well, within 3 points of winning he lost. So came very close to winning the series. So one of the more boring series, and that's from both teams. Before everyone jumps on the things, oh, such a bad loser, Paul. No, it was one of the most boring. The last game actually had some rugby in it, which was a bit of a surprise. But the first two were dull as dishwater.
It was the most boring. The most boring. It was like watching, Kardashians when you're blind, sort of thing. You're like, it was atrocious. It didn't do. It set rugby back 4 decades. And look, the reality is, I have to say this. I got to get this out of my chest. At the professional elite level, in every sport, participants have a obligation to play entertaining sport. Because it's an advertisement at the highest level. Best example I can give you is professional unarmed combat sport, mixed martial arts, UFC. For example, if you have 2 top fighters having a boring fight where they're just hugging and rolling on the ground, I will guarantee you the UFC will cut them off the roster immediately, or tell them, look, you got to go get stuff sorted out, because we need more viewers. We need to expand the market. I'm sure the South African fans are not complaining because they won, but the reality is that was a terrible advertisement for rugby. And, it was like going to the dentist and pulling teeth. That's how hard it was watching that game.
We could card them for being boring.
Well, Nocturnal Right says actually the series results should be stripped because it was so boring. Look, I mean, it was an awful series, both on the pitch and off the pitch as well. That Razzie video was a disgrace, and I think you should get a ban from all rugby, to be honest with you. But World Rugby took way too long to reply and do anything about it.
The worst thing is, Paul, it had the desired effect.
Yeah,
it basically worked. And if you look at the performance of Ben O'Keefe in that second test, that to me, and whilst I just saw the highlights of that, to me that was the disappointment. What they reckon that game went for, and the first half went for how many minutes did they say? Close to 60 minutes.
Oh yeah, 62 minutes with all the replays and everything. Yeah,
that's just ridiculous. And I'd hate to think, if you broke it down into time, how much rugby was played. Really and truthfully, if the boot was on the other shoe, if the All Blacks had just played a series like that, believe you me, they would be absolutely copping it. Yeah, you take the win at the end of the day, and you congratulate the world champions for that series victory. And given their circumstances, as John O'Connor has rightly reminded us a few times on our rugby chats. But really and truthfully, if you take solace in that, you can have it.
Yeah, no, look, for me, Razzie is look. They're already talking about the cult of Razzie, and look, yeah, he is all about winning and winning at any cost. I mean, look, we've seen. Look, he's renamed himself as director of rugby so he can be a water carrier, effectively, because then he says, "I'm not the head coach." Well, you seem to be as involved as a head coach rather than a director of rugby, to my mind. And Jacques Nabar does not appear to be the head coach. He's an assistant coach to you, who's the director of rugby. Then we also had one of the medical staff standing behind the goal line, basically directing the defence at one point as well. And it's just like, guys, there's sure professional rugby or professional sport is about winning, but not at any cost. And to me, they cost that South Africa crossed the line on this one. So there you go.
Yeah, shows you what they were prepared to do at the at the end of the day, Paul.
Yep.
Yeah, and also with you talk about desired effect in referees. I mean, I had a very close look and scrutinized contact, particularly in third test. The Lions, they were ripped for at least 6 or 7 more penalties, particularly for head-high contact. The entry into tackle by the South Africans, and this was something the referee, TMO, and the touch judges completely ignored. So, I don't really want to whinge and moan about refereeing decisions, but being neutral here, and for once, I'm actually going to say something in favor of the Lions. I think that they were really hard done on the field, but because of this whole Russie effect on criticizing Nick Berry, I mean, basically Nick Berry now hasn't got a hole to hide in because pretty much every other wrong decision which affected the Springboks was laid bare in terrible form. But if you go back and look at the referee right now, he missed a lot of things, and that was potentially because there was a lot on his mind, a lot on his plate. And I don't know whether you guys noticed this, but the scrum feeds in the third test, you might as well leave the ball at the foot of the number 8 because it was a joke. It was ridiculous.
Yep.
And that sort of nonsense needs to be taken out of the game. It just was not a good look, and it was manifestly unfair because you're sort of angling the ball. It was a second row feed every single time.
So it is. I say we've just added another bunch of stuff the referee's got to keep an eye on for. They already are being asked to look at too much, and hence we're seeing inconsistent and things not getting called. Simplifying the rules is the way forward, not making them more complex. So making them more complex really has not helped the situation at all.
Paul, I don't even know why they meet pre-match. To be brutally honest, players all know the rules. Why do you need to meet? I think World Rugby need to. You basically need to scrap this. If they don't already know what the laws are, well, hey, I give up.
Look, with these 5 rules, I personally say just get rid of it. It's ridiculous. It's nonsensical. There's 2 rules we need to really clamp down. One, you know what it is. Put a line across the chest, sternum line, tackle below that. And number 2, in the scrums, keep it simple. 1, 2, 3, engage, and then drive straight. That's it. Every season something new comes in. It's just too complicated. And some of those penalties, particularly in the first Bledisloe Cup, I thought when the Wallabies were penalized in the scrum, the wrong side was being penalized. It should have gone the other way around. So a lot of confusion, and all this is doing is just making the game complicated. It's nonsensical. I can go on and on all night, so I'll stop now.
Simon says he'd like there to be New Zealand Rugby to have a director of rugby, someone to look over the whole game of rugby in New Zealand. Well, there is a guy who looks after. There is a guy on the board who looks over the professional game, and then there's another guy who looks after the All Blacks. So look, there is, and then someone who looks over the community game. But so there is somebody who does that. But overwhelmingly, the number of people on the board are looking at the professional side of the game. Admittedly, there's like one person for community, which includes sort of club rugby, age grade rugby, and pretty much everything underneath. So I'm not sure the balance is quite right, but there are those people and those roles are there to a degree. So that's the Lions series done and dusted. Aaron Smith, congratulations on 100 caps, playing as good rugby as he has ever done, and great to see him there. Bledisloe Cup obviously would have been a draw if all the kicks had been kicked, but hey, at the end, it also was 33-8 at one point as well. So 2 different ways of looking at it. Were the Kiwis close? Sorry, were the Wallabies close? Were they not? Thank you. In that one, but it was good to see some nice rugby being played, which was the main thing. This weekend, Bledisloe Cup 2 at Eden Park. So do join us straight after that for post-match reaction here on New Zealand Sport Radio. At 3 a.m. on Sunday morning, we have the Springboks versus the Pumas, or South Africa versus Argentina. Be really interesting to see how Argentina go. I've got a fantastic opportunity here to ambush the Springboks, who have come off the back of this Lions series, will have been celebrating that. They've come off the back of a successful series, beating, I think it was Romania and then Wales twice, or Wales a draw and then Wales. So they're coming into this off some good form from the mid-year tests and have had time to prepare just for the Springboks, whereas the Springboks have been concentrating on the Lions. So a good opportunity for the Pumas to ambush the Springboks there. And obviously we've got all the NPC and Farah Palmer Cup action this weekend, so lots more rugby. Any final points, boys? So I want us to talk about this increasing the size of the Christchurch Stadium from 25 to 30. I don't think we've really got time, and we'll just it is what it is at the end of the day. Any final comments, boys?
No, that's it, guys. Good to get through this show. I probably passed you on that bug, Paul.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yep.
Just looking forward to the Saturday. Every time the All Blacks have had a tight win or loss, 8 points or lesser tight win or loss, they come back, bounce back, 21 to 37 point margin. So this Saturday, Eden Park. I think we've seen this movie before. I, for one, am really looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it.
Yep. Well, we'll see. Aaron Smith did mention, or I think I heard him say that they went off game plan, particularly in the first half. So clearly, if you go off game plan, you don't expect then that you have problems. So clearly, you can't blame the coaches when the players go off game plan. So I know that Ian Foster has been taking more flack, and people saying, "Oh, he should be dropped. We get rid of him. He's just won the Bledisloe Cup game. You're saying get rid of him? Okay, whatever." Let's be honest. It's not about his coaching quality or his the results he's getting. It's about who he is, and people just don't like him, put bluntly. So,
and also a real positive was, it's good to see, ABs take shot points and goal when the opportunity arose. So that told me that shows a bit of tactical maturity, and the wind did have a huge effect because it was pretty stormy that day. And I lost a couple of trees in my backyard on that same day. And that's why you saw Sibu Rees coming and holding the ball for Richie Mo'unga. And I have to say, he struck the ball pretty well. So kudos to them. And I think the weather did have a significant impact on them. Although both sides don't really want or didn't want to make that as an excuse. It was pretty windy out there.
Just for me, I just want to see a bit more physicality from the All Blacks, because I actually thought the only guy that really offered physicality and bent the line was probably Akira Ioane. In fact, he just looks in amazing shape at the moment. Had to do the old double take. He looks really lean and right on top of his game at the moment, but just want to see a little bit more physicality out of that All Black team.
And it's good to see Nocturnal Rights getting in there early. Ian Foster's successor must be sacked. So he's making the call early. All right, thank you, everybody. So we're back this weekend with post-match reaction to that the Bledisloe Cup game. I might get up at 3 a.m. for post-match reaction to the Springboks versus the Pumas, but my sleep schedule has been absolutely wrecked by the Lions tour. But that is a game I really do want to watch. So, folks, look out. It may happen. It may not. Thank you, Bella. Thank you, Stephen.